Let's bring in Darrell Miller to talk more about gun law reforms. He's a professor of law at Duke Law School and the co-faculty director of the Duke Center for Firearms Law. Darrell, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, there have been at least 12 mass shootings in the U.S. since Friday. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive. And yet the Supreme Court seems poised to expand Second Amendment rights in the country. So explain what's being considered in the highly anticipated ruling in the gun rights case out of New York.
Yeah, so the case that's before the Supreme Court of the United States is a case called New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, or NYSERPA. And in this case, the discrete, narrow issue is to what degree can a state like New York exercise some discretion on who can be licensed to carry a firearm with them off their property. That's the narrow issue. A handful of states, 5 to 9, depending on how you count, but making up about a quarter of the population have these what are known as may issue regulations. And that's the narrow issue in the NYSERPA case. But the issue that I'm really watching is this sleeper issue, which is how do you even go about deciding a Second Amendment case? And if the court ends up deciding that on purely historical grounds, then the vast swath of regulation is going to be up for challenge.
So, Darrell, what did we learn during the oral arguments for the Bruen case?
At the oral argument, I think we saw some indication that the regulation is likely to be struck down. And then the real question is how narrow or broad the ruling will be. A very narrow decision would be something to the effect of that New York has to have more objective metrics for when to issue these concealed carry licenses. They can't rely on the discretion of the licensing authority. A very broad decision on that particular point would be something like you can't have a licensing regime at all. You can't license concealed carry, and everybody is, under the Second Amendment, permitted to carry a gun wherever they happen to go. Again, the broadest version of this would be this sort of historical analysis that the court might apply, which would essentially say that only those regulations that have a long provenance, or indeed maybe even only have an analog in the 1700s, are constitutional, and all other regulations are unconstitutional. That would be the broadest and potentially the most disruptive kind of decision that the Supreme Court could hand down.
So, Darrell, what sort of immediate impact could expanding the Second Amendment have?
Well, again, if the court rules on this discrete issue of licensing, it'll impact about a quarter of the population in those states like California, New York, New Jersey, that have these may issue permitting laws. But again, if the court ends up saying that the way you analyze a Second Amendment case is not by figuring out whether 18-year-olds have impulse control issues and therefore shouldn't have, AR-15s, but instead, is there a regulation like this in 1791? Then it's not just about carry; it's about everything. There are prohibitions, for example, going back to the 1960s on having a loaded pistol in the cabin of an airplane. But I don't know how the court ends up doing an analysis when you look around in 18th century law books for what is the analog to a gun in an airplane. There just isn't any. So again, if we get this broad sort of meta issue about how to even figure out whether something violates the Second Amendment, then all bets are off. All of the vast swath of gun regulation that we have in the country.
Darrell, I think the question on so many people's minds this week and lately is these mass shootings. Why does it seem that they are such a uniquely American experience? Why do we not see similar epidemics of it in other developed nations?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge issue. America is unique in the world of having this phenomenon of mass shootings and the lethality. Even though other countries have comparable rates of mental illness and other kinds of problems. One of them just has to be the paralysis, I think, at the political level. Here's the issue, the sort of stark political issue, which is overwhelming majorities of people support things like universal background checks, restrictions or regulations on things like large capacity magazines and so forth. But the reality is, I mean, by huge margins, 70-30, 80-20, depending on what polls you're talking about. But the reality is that 20% or that 10% or whatever the minority is, they really vote on this issue, whereas the vast majority of people don't. And until and unless a portion of that majority that support these kinds of regulations are going to punish the politicians that slow walk it or stymie it, then we're going to see this asymmetric intensity on gun issues. Right now, the issue about gun violence prevention is a political issue. We're going to have to wait to see and brew in whether it becomes more and more a legal issue.
Darrell Miller, thank you.